Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pain Exchange, a monthly podcast from the International Association for the Study of Pain, highlighting global innovations in pain research and amplifying the voices of our diverse membership. Every 2 years at the World Congress on Pain, IASP welcomes a new organization president elected by our members. This year, we are excited to welcome in Dr. Mary Sum Cardosa, a consultant pain specialist who has served for more than 30 years in the Ministry of Health in Malaysia to fill this role. Among her many accomplishments, she is a pioneer of pain science in Malaysia, founding some of the first pain management, education, and health services in the country. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to Mary and to speak with her about her illustrious career and her passion for IASP. Hello, Mary. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Renee. Thanks. It's my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So what is your background in pain?
Well, I'm a medical doctor. I went to medical school in Malaysia and I've worked my whole medical career in Malaysia. I specialize in anesthesiology. Anesthesia, we call it there, but here you say the long word anesthesiology.
We got to make it complicated.
Yeah. And then when I was doing my anesthesia training in Australia, I did it in Malaysia and then I went to Australia for a couple of years to do the Australian fellowship as well. And when I was doing my training there were two things that I learned that we did not have in Malaysia. So one was about day surgery or ambulatory surgery, and the second was about pain. So there was a very good acute pain service where I trained in Adelaide, Royal Adelaide Hospital. I wanted to learn something that we didn't have in Malaysia. So there was no such service in Malaysia when I had done my training. So I learned those two things, and when I went back to Malaysia, I told my boss, I want to do daycare or ambulatory surgery. He said, no. What else do you want to do? I said, the other thing that I learned is pain. You will do pain, he said. So, I said, okay. I set up the acute pain service in the hospital where I was working, which is Hospital Kuala Lumpur, which is one of the biggest hospitals in the country. And after that, my boss, again, the same boss, said, I think you better go for further training in pain because we had what we call subspecialty training. So pain medicine had not been established in Malaysia at that time. So I was the first one to go for formal training in pain management. And I was lucky enough to get into the Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney, where I spent a year with Professor Michael Cousins, who is one of the icons of pain medicine in our region, comparable to John Bonica in this region. So anyway, I trained with Michael Cousins and Michael Nicholas, the psychologist, clinical psychologist who's still active in IASP, was also there. Mm-hmm. And Fiona Blythe. So I met a lot of people there. And I thought, this is good. I also did some training in palliative care. And that was because my father actually was a cancer survivor. And he had set up some hospice at home, going to people's home to help them look after themselves, mm-hmm. people with advanced cancer. So he wanted me to do cancer pain. I said, I don't think so. But I said, okay, I'll do a little bit of palliative care. So I did that. And so in the end, I did both pain and palliative care, but I ended up helping the palliative care people to set up their services. And then I moved on to just focus on pain management. Mm. So as an anesthesiologist, I was still giving anesthetics in the operating theatre, but I was spending a lot of my time doing pain, both acute, post-operative pain, as well as chronic pain, where we see patients in the outpatient setting in the pain clinic. And one day, one of the surgeons told my boss in anesthesia that I don't want Mary to do anesthesia because she's only a part-time anesthetist. She's doing too much pain. So my boss told me this and I said, well, I'm happy to do only pain, So by that time, I had evolved in my clinical career enough to say that, I'm happy to let go of anesthesia. Sometimes when you have a basic training in something, you don't really want to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
But by that time, I was happy to let go of anesthesia. So I've done full-time pain for the last, I don't know how many years, 20 years maybe. But I'll always remember that surgeon who said he didn't want me to give gas for him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I ended up setting up a lot of services because I was the first person to be trained formally. And I was in the Ministry of Health. So in Malaysia, you have Ministry of Health, which has like a whole lot of hospitals throughout the country. And then you have the university hospitals, which each university has one hospital, So the university, my colleagues in the university where I did my master's in anesthesiology wanted me to go back to the university to work with them. But I said, it's only one hospital.
Right.
That there will be. So I wanted a bigger impact.
Yes.
So I said, I'll stay with Ministry of Health because we have so many hospitals. So I had started acute pain service in the 90s in Hospital Kuala Lumpur, and that had already replicated itself and multiplied in most of the other big hospitals in the Ministry of Health. Then I worked on getting pain services up, chronic pain clinics, and I had to train other anesthesiologists who wanted to do pain medicine as well. And the other thing that I did was start a pain management program in Malaysia, which was actually the first in Malaysia and the first in Southeast Asia. The reason for that is that when you sit in the pain clinic, I already had the concept of multidisciplinary working in teams from the Royal North Shore Hospital, which had a very good setup with doctors, physiotherapists, clinical psychologists. And we used to see patients in the morning, and then we have a lunchtime meeting to discuss the new patients that we had seen. And then after that, the registrar, which was me, the workhorse, had to go back and tell the patient what the plan was. Right. So I was used to that kind of setup. And they also ran an intensive pain management program, which they call the ADAPT program in Royal North Shore, where you can really see the impact of teaching patients about their pain and about how to manage using a variety of methods, including self-management techniques, but also, using not just medications alone or not just interventions, blocks, but also teaching them, making them understand what's happening to them in their pain, and also teaching them techniques like activity pacing, planning, and things that help them to live better with pain. So I had already that in my background. And when I went back to Malaysia, I started my pain clinic. I had a physiotherapist. I borrowed a psychologist through one of my friends in a university because we didn't have psychologists in our in Ministry of Health hospitals at that time. This was the early 2000. This was in the year 2000. So anyway, I had a small team and a nurse. So we were working together. But I saw that, there's really no outlet, no way that I can discharge these patients. They keep coming back again and again. So I said, I need to start a pain program, On a side note, I don't know whether this is good or bad to say, but I had also set up the palliative care service, and the palliative care service was running, but you don't get overloaded because the patients die, you see,
Exactly.
Whereas for chronic pain, they don't die. They keep coming back.
Exactly. You need to come up with a long-term solution.
So how do I discharge these patients, Basically, the success of a pain clinic is the ability to send the patient off and say, okay, you're doing well, you can be on your own.
I think something I've heard a lot of pain doctors say is, I wish you well and I hope to never see you again.
Yeah, that is really the philosophy, I think, that should be behind a pain doctor in our relationship with our patients. Anyway, so I managed to get some funding from the Ministry of Health, and I brought a team back to Royal North Shore, Sydney. And we had a nurse, a psychiatrist, and a physiotherapist. And we went back and we observed the 3-week ADAPT program. And my team members, the people that I brought, were so impressed with the program that they said, we need to do this as well. So when we were there, we were able to plan and, modify the program to suit our needs and our conditions, because we would all be doing it as, it wouldn't be a full-time job for us. We would have to do it in addition to our other work.
Right.
So that was going to be a challenge. So anyway, we cut the program from 3 weeks down to 2 weeks. We looked at what were the components that we really wanted to keep and what we could let go. So then within 6 months after returning to Malaysia, we had our first program. But Michael Nicholas came over to help us to run the first program. So, and subsequently, we ran 2 programs a year. And for the first 5 programs, we managed to bring in clinical psychologists to help us. For the first program, the physiotherapist, Lois Tonkin, also came to help us. And we were very fortunate to have that support, All we had to supply was their airfare and accommodation. We didn't have to pay them any professional fees, which is really a big help. Yeah. So
very generous of
we
them.
We were very grateful for that, and we were able to show that, in the first 5 groups. For the 5th group, Amanda Williams from the UK came and helped us. And so, we had very good mentorship. And by the time we ran the 4th program, there was a clinical psychologist who had returned from Australia after her PhD. And she was coming to the pain clinic to help us. So she learned from the other clinical psychologists. And by the 6th program, we could run it on our own.
There we go.
So it took a bit of time because it was only 2 programs a year. But, but because it was 2 programs a year, I was able to get some funding for them to come, and my hospital was supportive in the sense that they provided accommodation for the visitors.
Good.
So, so there was a lot of support, and the patients were very happy, and we were very happy because we were very impressed by the patients, how much they could improve in 2 weeks. So whereas the ADAPT program was 3 weeks, we ran the program only for 2 weeks because we said we couldn't spare so much time. And we told our patients, because we think Malaysians are better than Australians, faster learners. So because we show them, that this is a program that is not up in the air that we came up with ourselves. This is, something that's been established and shown to have good results.
Exactly. And you're adapting it to your own home environment.
So we had to use, because Malaysia is a multi-ethnic country, so we had to translate. We use English, Bahasa Malaysia, which is the Malaysian language, Malay. And also some people couldn't speak a lot of English or Malay, so sometimes we had to translate into Tamil, which is Indian. Some of the Indians were only Tamil speaking, and Chinese.
Wow.
So that was a bit of a challenge, but most of the time we just did bilingual in English and Malay. And even when the Australians or the foreigner psychologist was there, we translated whatever they said. So one of us translated. We were wondering whether those who understood both languages were at an advantage because they heard the same message twice. But
they had a little more time
we did some analysis, and it didn't make any difference whether they were
Well,
So, yeah.
that's amazing that it can translate to all of these different cultures as well. And shows that it can really be translated across the world too.
Yes, that's right. So what happened was that when we started the program, which we call the Menang program, Menang means to win in Malay, and we shortened it from program Menangani Kesakitan. So Menangani means manage, and kesakitan is pain. Okay, so instead of such a long name, we shortened it to the Menang program, which means to win. So so it was a good acronym, which was I have to give credit to my nurse. My pain clinic nurse came out with the name, not me. So now till today, we still run the Menang program, and we have like 40 something groups. And we train. We have what we call observers. So people from other hospitals who are doing pain management. So both doctors, nurses, physios, and clinical psychology students as well come and observe the program. So they learn by observing.
Right.
And so we thought we will only have observers for the first couple of programs, but now 20 years later, we still have observers. And we're also getting people from Singapore, the Philippines, Thailand, other countries in the region who come to observe what we are doing.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah, and we managed to publish our results also with the help of Michael and Amanda and, some of the people who have good skills in publishing. And and so we have shown that our results are just as good as in the West, in other countries.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's so important with globalization, the increasing globalization that's been happening recently.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been a member of IASP? How did IASP kind of help you in this journey?
Oh, okay. I became a member of IASP in the late 90s, okay, when before I started my pain training. I started my pain training in 98. That means, so I've been a member for coming on 30 years, not yet 30 years. And I became a member because my boss wanted me to do pain. And so I said, okay. And then I have found that what I found with IASP, which was unique, I had been a member of the Anesthesia Society and for many years. But the unique thing about IASP was that we had in the same space at the Congress, both clinicians as well as basic science. So there was this cross fertilization, or this ability to communicate between both the researchers and the clinicians, which I think is one of the strengths of IASP. So since then, I was also a member of my own chapter, my own Malaysian Pain Society, which Malaysian Association for the Study of Pain, which was established by other people before me. Okay, there were a couple of others in the university where I had studied who were the pioneers in the pain, Malaysian Association for the Study of Pain. So anyway, I became active in that, and then we had a regional group called ASEAPS, Association of Southeast Asian Pain Societies. And so through that, then I became more active in the pain education and advocacy, first in Southeast Asia, and then I somehow or other got into the council. There's a funny story also about my first time in the council. I received a call saying that you have been nominated for IASP Council. So I said, oh, and as it is now, there's always two people running against each other. And I said, oh, who else is running for this position? So because of the need for regional representation, it was somebody from Singapore whom I knew very well.
Oh, no.
So I said, oh, in that case, I won't run. Let her have the position. I said, And the funny thing is, Cynthia Gore, who was the person that was running against, said the same. She told me later that she had said the same thing to them. But they said, no. If you don't run, we'll have to get somebody else to run in your place, So I said, okay, I'll run against Cynthia, and whoever gets in is fine, because we had been working together already for some time by then. So Cynthia actually got in. Cynthia got into the council, and then I was asked to do some other work, SPC and other IASP volunteer committee work. So I did that, and then after Cynthia finished her term, then I ran again, and I was nominated again, and I got into council after Cynthia finished her term. In the meantime, I was still doing work with IASP, and we were building up our networks and our, we call pain champions in our region.
I love that.
Yeah.
We've got to bring that around the world.
So that's my how I got involved with IASP.
And now you're the president-elect.
Yeah, imagine that.
What are you excited about for your upcoming presidential term?
So I think that, we shouldn't be, I'm from a low and middle income country, right? So middle income, but, LMIC or developing countries as we called them in those days. And I think that one of the challenges for us is that we always feel that we are not good enough, We are the people in the developed countries, in the global north are better than us and things like that. So I think that I wanted to show that we can do just as well as the others, and that IASP should be a really global organization. So I think Andrew Rice has already done a lot, to mobilize and to engage with people in the Global South, in LMICs, and his Global Year theme last year was really very good for us. And so I want to continue that work, and I want to bring in hopefully more chapters from LMICs. And there are some regions that we haven't covered, like Africa. We have very poor coverage in Africa. Middle East, we have chapters, but and some of them are very active, but I think that we could engage with them better.
For sure.
Pacific, actually, because in Southeast Asia, we have started engaging with the people in Pacific. We have invited them to our Southeast Asian pain camps, and they don't have chapters in any of the Pacific Island. So those, but that's too ambitious. I think Africa, if I can get a couple more chapters from Africa, that would be great. And also, I want people from LMICs to say, hey, look, we can contribute. We're not just passive recipients of the grants and the financial aid to attend the World Congress, which is what a lot of people feel, that we are not able to contribute significantly to the organization. But I think that having points of view from people from different cultures and different countries and different settings is important to enrich the organization. So I hope that I'm able to do this. I don't know whether I will talk too much and other people won't be able to talk.
I think just having you in this position and also having the transition between you and Andrew happen in Thailand, I think is going to be a great step forward with that.
Yeah, I'm very excited that the World Congress is in Thailand. We had a big debate about Thailand or Australia at that time, a few years ago. And I'm happy that, Thailand got chosen. And so I hope that there will be a big presence of people, attendees, delegates from Southeast Asia and Asia in general at that conference, because it's much nearer for us to travel, instead of always having to come across the world to attend the conference,
Yes.
Although for some people, that's the attraction, that they can go to another country, another part of the world and attend a conference on the side.
Vacation, but a little work.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Thank you so much for talking with me, Mary. I really appreciate it. And I am so excited to see what you do with the organization in the next 2 years.
Thanks, Renee, for talking to me.
Of course.